I want to ask that all of the HKonJ partners that are here would raise your hands in the air and make some noise. All of the members of the NAACP and presidents and executive members, raise your hand and make some noise. All the young people that are in the crowd, raise your hand. We give honor to God today. We is the most important word in the justice vocabulary. The question is never what we can't do. The question is always what we can do when we stand together, work together, hope together, and demand justice together. 143 years ago, in 1868, blacks and whites, after 4 years of violent war, came together to shape the promises of a diverse democracy over against a society that had been built on evil, the evil inhumanity of chattel slavery of millions of human beings. In this capital city, a few blocks from here, blacks and whites came together to shape the promise of a new democracy, a diverse democracy rooted in the promises, the possibilities, and the politics of tomorrow. Standing together, they penned a new constitution, which at its core called all people in North Carolina to remember that all power is vested in and derived from the people, and it is founded upon their will only and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. History called these courageous efforts fusion politics, are coming together to reconstruct a new North Carolina and a new South. But 30 years later, a violent band of racists broke the promises of the new Constitution and the fragile political fusion that courageous blacks and whites had built. Violent, lawless, and corrupt forces determined to go backwards and restore the racist culture and social practices of racism and regression rather than those of freedom and justice. Beginning in Wilmington, they ran roughshod over the forces of righteousness and our Constitution. And yet in the middle of broken promises and pain, another we emerged. 102 years ago on this very day, blacks and whites came together again, called for a new commitment to build the fusion politics of tomorrow. In the midst of the racist, regressive politics of yesterday, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, was formed 102 years ago today. We need Isaiah Harris to come to the stage, a young 11-year-old boy, Isaiah Harris. If you see him, you know him, tell him to come to the stage. 102 years ago, white and blacks, preachers and scholars, Jews and Christians, lawyers and social scientists decided that in the midst of social crisis of regression, they would not go backwards. Instead, they would answer the call for justice. They would challenge the forces of injustice. They would still believe in the possibility of we the people. This commitment to the politics of tomorrow, the politics of vision and hope, has had many ebbs and flows in our 102-year history. We have witnessed many manifestations since then, but we know on today, without a shadow of doubt, as we gather here on February 12, 2011, we stand in that grand tradition which still refuses to believe that inequality and injustice has the last word. It is a tradition so deep, so creative, so transformative that it keeps on, even when its leaders are assassinated. This longing for inclusive democracy captures the imagination of each succeeding generation. And right before our eyes, we see it on the streets of Cairo in Egypt. Because injustice demands a challenge, and the very essence of our souls cry out for freedom. And so we come here today not just to march, but to convene our People's Assembly. We gather here in front of our house, the People's House, the General Assembly, as another manifestation of a mighty movement. We gather here to say to those who want to drag this state and this country back into the politics of yesterday, yes, the voices of division are louder than ever, but we won't go back. We are here as a coalition standing together to fight for the kind of future North Carolina and this nation needs. We gather to say to those who promote regressive, ultra-conservative, extreme, right-wing, Tea Party-type politics, politics which pander to the prejudices and fears of people's worst instincts, politics which try to drag us back as a state and a nation. Your tactics will not work. While we love you as human beings, we will fight your policies all the way. We will challenge Democrats who are not progressive, and we will challenge Republicans who attempt to revise history, saying that you are back in power after 100 years of absence. The last time Republicans were in control, they were Lincoln Republicans, African Americans and whites in the grand old party of President Abraham Lincoln. The Republicans in the late 1860s believed in civil rights, believed in workers' rights, believed in a right to a sound basic education. You can't claim this history unless you govern with that philosophy. And we call on our governor, if it's wrong, veto it. Somebody said she can't veto everything, but veto everything that's wrong. So we gather today to demand educational equality for every child. Resegregating our public schools is a vicious backward step. It's a turn in the wrong direction, and we can't have it. Please look for little Isaiah Harris wearing a black sweatshirt with gray and words purple. Look for him. We're going to find him. I believe he's in the crowd. Gray sweatshirt. Is that right? Good. Look for him. Little Isaiah. All right. We gather here for Isaiah.
Looking for Isaiah.
We know that regression and segregation is the wrong turn in the wrong direction. Policies that resegregate our schools, not just in Wake, but in Halifax, New Hanover, Wayne, Forsyth, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, they're all backwards. They take our diverse democracy backwards and in the wrong direction. Intentionally purging certain schools and attendance zones of black and Latino and poor children, and creating high-poverty schools that create unequal resources and rapid teacher turnover and low student achievement is backwards and headed in the wrong direction. It does not work toward the good of the whole. When you break a system that's working, make it sick again and then try to fix it again, that's backwards. The policies of the extreme right that have seized Mr. Lincoln's party in the South are going backwards. They promote schools of academic inclusion rather than academic excellence. Ultra-right ideologues promote resurging resegregation to create their own set of exclusive private schools with public dollars. They promote pockets of educational genocide and educational apartheid for poor schools and neighborhoods of color, while setting up exclusive schools that pander to children from wealthy neighborhoods. There's something wrong that when tens of thousands of dollars spent to win 5 seats in Wake County take our schools back, and the money can be tracked to Art Pope, who makes his millions off poor people. There's something wrong when hundreds of thousands of dollars slipped to the Tea Party can be traced to the right-wing outfit called Americans for Prosperity, and then their money can be tracked to the Koch brothers, who inherited their money from their daddy, Freddie Koch, who helped set up the John Birch Society and tried to halt the civil rights, labor, and anti-poverty movement. We know what's going on, and we declare forward together. We gather here today to say, stop demonizing our Latino children. Stop stealing their dreams. Stop trying to ban them from getting an education after high school. This is backwards and headed in the wrong direction. We gather here today to demand that every child has a right to high-quality, well-funded, diverse, constitutional education. Every child is special. Every child is somebody. Every child is God-ordained. Red, yellow, black, and white. They're all precious in God's sight. Educate our children. Lift our children. Invest in our children. That's the right direction, and that's the way forward. And we also gather here today, Reverend Johnson, to demand economic justice for all. Here are some hard facts. Official unemployment stuck around 10%, black and Latino employment somewhere between 20 and 35%, depending on the region of the nation. It's indeed a great recession for some, but a great depression for many people of color and poor. 1 in 3 working families live in or near poverty. Over 44 million live in poverty. Last Thanksgiving, over 42 million Americans used food stamps, 15 million more than when the Bush Great Recession started 3 winters ago. Let's get real. If this extreme right-wing repeal of the Affordable Care Act were to happen, it would cost us $200